double A, always see. It's how do you view you, not how they see. A show, Duvernay Fanaka, Spike Lee, an image is represented that looks like me. Nothing ridiculous, slick like niggas, bad like Callaway, the Nina May, between like butterflies, sting like green leaf. I'm the spook next to the door and the TV. We be one nation, living self-science, build and destroy till we formed an alliance. Hollywood shuffle, meet monkey hustle, Warhawk and black belt here for the trouble. Rebel, no pause, all for the jaw jack. Caesar, Foxy plus the rest of this raw pack. Take your toe tack, give me Paul ropes, chin up, chest out, no to the tropes, and pride to the end. Black excellence within, the dynamite of Willie singing sweet back again. When it's all said and done, son, remember, you're rolling with the rock. Run, ready on the mark, cause we targeting the art. Shooting from the hip, cause we the rocking from the heart.
This is big business right here.
Alright, so welcome to the first official Department of Afro-American Research, Arts, and Culture, aka DAARAC. It's our first podcast, and you are now rolling with DAARAC because that's how we're going to be doing things from this point forward. And so I am the host for this session, Dr. James D. Spinks.
Well, my name is AJ1, One Nation. Born and raised in Los Angeles, and always had an affinity for the music, the art, and the culture of the time. And once I was introduced into hip-hop in the early 80s, growing up in Inglewood, that became my life, breakdancing and ball playing. This opportunity here with Brother JD and Dr. Tafari is incredible.
Yeah, man, because we came a long way from getting this started from where it was to where we at now.
A blog.
So, yeah, a whole blog. But we'll get in that to a minute, man.
Yeah.
Want to introduce my next colleague,
Kinky Shaman.
one of the smartest, the Kinky Shaman. Yeah, one of the smartest individuals I know, and the only cat I know with 2 PhDs.
Damn.
Dr. Nwachi Tafari. Dr. Nwachi Tafari.
That's DR Spinks. Dr. Spinks told me I need to call myself DR squared, since he's a mathematician, just to hurt folk when I introduce myself in the class when I'm teaching. I'm so thrilled to be with two gentlemen and scholars. If I didn't know them, I would aspire to be them. So in that sense, let me start from there. I'm a human scientist, what I will call a human scientist. And that's what my second degree, my PhD is in, and the EDD is about human development. I love being black. I love my skin. I love the history of us. And my whole notion was to be a good black man as I grew up. And when I couldn't be a good black man necessarily, because I don't think we can live a life of just goodness, especially if you have revolutionary thoughts. That I decided to be the best me that I could be. So I study humanity, sexuality, our holistic nature, and how we relate to nature, the world, and also it's probably the most important to me is the purpose and spiritual nature of why we are here on the planet, which makes us all human in my mind. But certainly, I walk this walk as a black man. I emphasize that with tattoos and piercings, simply I like to be the dude who they don't think has any education. So if they ask me a question, I can be like, well, I got a little bit. So, right. And a father, 2 beautiful daughters, that sort of a thing. So I'm like one, fathering for about 20 years. Big Pumpkin just turned 20. Little Pumpkin's 15. Still figuring that out and watching them do their thing. So I just love the invitation to be here amongst these two wise men. Appreciate it.
Oh man, no problem, man. I'm glad to have you here because there's a lot of things you and I had discussed over these years, man, and kind of combine our extensive education into how we see the world and reality. And to kind of piggyback off of what some of Dr. T and Wone was talking about, again, my name is Dr. James Spinks. I am the president CEO of DAARAC. Got my education in mathematics at Winston-Salem State, North Carolina A&T, and got my PhD in atmospheric science. So I do consider myself a scientist of the environmental sector.
Yeah.
Man, niggas say atmospheric science again for me. I'm sorry. I just wanted to hear you say it. You got a PhD in what?
Yeah.
Atmospheric science.
Oh shit.
So what's funny, man, is I started both researching the culture and the atmospheric science process the same year my daughter was born in 2008. So it all went down at the same time. So I didn't really know where this was going to go. I didn't know how it was going to go. Only thing I knew is that my pops gave me a Superfly CD and I listened to it and I was like, word. I was like, this is pretty amazing stuff right here by this guy Curtis Mayfield. And plus, me being a big fan of Friday, there was a few cuts from Friday that came off the Superfly soundtrack as well.
Right.
And so I got into it and I said, well, let me check this out, man. And seeing that this soundtrack was part of the Blaxploitation era. And I was like, Blaxploitation? Like, what the heck is this? I ain't never heard this mess before. And so I did a little bit of research and came across a few more soundtracks. The Mac by Willie Hutch. And the other one, Foxy Brown by Willie Hutch. And Coffee. And I was like, yo. I said, there was a whole era of this stuff from the 1970s. Why don't I know about this? From being born in 1984, I grew up on 90s stuff, so and hip hop, so I didn't know nothing about 70s flicks and those 70s soundtracks. So I decided to start a blog to collect as many Blaxploitation soundtracks as possible. Started that in 2008, and I can't even explain to you how on point or how popular this blog was for about a good 4-year stretch. That's where I met Wone at. Right. He came across. Wone, how did you come across that blog, man?
So I'm going through the internet looking at things because at the time there was something called Media Share. Is that what it was? It was Rapid Share and Media Share, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I came across a whole bunch of blogs. Four Brothers blog, Digging in the Crates, Simon 666 Roads, all these different websites or these blogs that had 70s music zipped up in these little files that you could just download. And I'm looking all over the place and I see something that says Blaxploitation Pride. So I go on there. And first thing I do is see who the moderator of the blog is. And I see something that it looks educational. From the rest of the other blogs that I was looking at, this one looked like it was academic, because it was the description of the artist, it was a track list, it was links on there, all different kinds of things on the side. It was like you were in a university of culture. So I reached out to the brother and I was happy to know that it was a brother because that was the first thing, man. This shit is so organized and shit. Yeah, it's probably some little college kid. Yeah, this little college kid over here, UCLA or some Ivy League or some shit. So then, when I reached out to him, I just congratulated him. I said, "Hey, what you doing here is phenomenal. It's incredible. I grew up in the '70s. One of the last Blaxploitation directors. May he rest in peace, Jamal Fanaka. My first movie I did with him, Street Wars. And then I asked, I see you got all these soundtracks. What about incorporating film? And what did you tell me?
I was like, man, I ain't ready for film.
Yeah. That's a whole other box to open right there.
Yeah.
You said,
man,
I
wasn't ready.
Yeah, you
I couldn't do it. It was too much.
Right. You said it was already something. It took me some years to be able to collect, cull and mine through the internet all these soundtracks. That's a whole other can of worms getting into the movies. I said, well, come on, man, consider it at least. Get it started. And what else happened after that?
So once we got the soundtracks, we pretty much ran out of soundtracks to collect. I mean, we just went kind of no. I think we stopped at around about 170 soundtracks, and so we just started. We started with one film, and I don't even remember the first film that we even posted, but whatever that may have been, we decided to go ahead and just start posting films. And for about 3 or 4 years, we was just posted, and then it finally hit me that we never really sat down and defined what we would consider a movie to be part of the Blaxploitation era or not. We never defined, we never got a definition for it or anything. I mean, as a person that never grew up in the era, it was almost like every 70s flick that had a black guy or a black woman in it that played a lead role was a Blaxploitation movie. I mean, that's just how I was just generically naming everything Blaxploitation. So I didn't have no definition for it.
Right. Yeah, Jonius Griffin.
Yeah, he's the one that had started it. But some of the mainstream definitions that you'll usually see on the internet, Wikipedia, the exploitation of black people, especially with regards to stereotype roles in movies. Now, that's a really narrow definition. And
it's not even where my love comes from.
Right. And so, Dr. T and I had discussed on several occasions the importance of semantics and how you define something, because it could be easily misconstrued amongst people that you're trying to explain to, or whatever you're trying to explain can be lost in translation. And so if I'm going off this very generic definition that says here, the exploitation of black people, especially with regards to stereotyping movie roles, that's every black movie that's been made since since the beginning of time. And so
just a different sort of stereotype. Most certain.
Right.
Most certain. I'm sorry I jumped in. It's just that part of it. One Nation was the one who said, "Hey, we gotta make sure we understand the psychological aspect of these films and place them in a context of a bigger understanding."
Right.
And for me, before Blaxploitations, there was writers like James Baldwin and Richard Wright who were angry, Malcolm X who were angry, and to me, that's what I liked about Blaxploitation, because to me that was it was the illegitimate child of those folk, because you got to be angry, you got to slap somebody and say fuck you, and and many of us, whether it's Dirty South, West Coast, or East Coast, some of our greatest heroes are the motherfuckers who didn't give a shit. who just like, yo, I'm gonna be me, and you know, catch me if you can. And and I think the first symbol is what was symbolic for me was Native Son, and that was published in the 1940s by Richard Wright, and he had a character named Nigger Thomas, which was really code for Nigger Thomas, and he said he built it on probably 4 or 5 people he knew in the world, or had experience, and they didn't care. They didn't care. They, you know, they dared people to mess with them, regardless of race. And I started to see that in Blaxploitation. And to say that Blaxploitation is specific to African Americans, yeah, I see that in one way. But in the larger context of cinema, the anti-hero like Clint Eastwood out here talking about make my day and being an angry cop and all this other shit is going on at the same time. Right. So, you know, this is about America at the time. This is not just black people and exploiting who we were. There were angry whites out there who were like, yo, death wish. I'm going out here and killing people who mess with my family. Fuck the cops, because the cops ain't doing what I need them to do. You know, they're working slow because of their process. So they were angry at the cops too. You can see that on the Capitol building siege. But you know me, One. I'm supposed to go get their manager. Go get your manager, man. Let me talk to their manager.
Right.
Yeah, man.
And so,
right.
As you can see, how defining blaxploitation could be very problematic.
To a double doctor, even.
Yeah.
To a double doctor. Much less. Let's also say, let's roll into this Facebook situation, because what's happening with Facebook? There's 380,000 followers.
Not quite. We had about 330,000 followers, about 160,000 likes.
That's a whole lot of opinions.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot of
opinions. That's
a whole lot of opinions.
Lots of opinions.
And even greater with that are the ideas based on the ages and the classifications. Folks have they take ownership of this era as well.
Right.
So we have noticed over the years that older generations say, what's so prideful about being exploited? What is this pride? What we happy about here? What is this? And we see them put those comments up in there, and it's so hard to not take it personal, to figure out how do they not get what's going on. But then it went from, we didn't clearly define what it is. Are we saying we're happy about what we saw in the 70s? And is what we saw in the 70s such a great example of exploitation, or was it an example of kicking ass, taking names, not partnering with the authorities, getting the woman at the end as the credits roll?
Come on, don't give me hype.
And so this is actually something that Dr. T had taught me, and I want him to elaborate on it a little bit more.
Yeah, man. I was one touched on his background and his age. I was born in '68, so I definitely lived through the '70s and seeing the Bronx being burnt up and understanding how hip hop was cultivated in an area that looked like it was Afghanistan. I have lived through the part. I remember going into the city with my mom. I think my mom worked in the Rockaways, and it may have been my dad. My dad might have brought me to Manhattan. But one of my first memories is remembering when the sanitation was on strike and garbage was piled up as high as you were in the city. So, you know, and the subways just being very violent, you know, New York being a very violent place at that time, and growing up in that. But I also think that who America was and who we were as black people try to sanitize who we were. And what I mean by that is, I think that that's part of the feminist movement now. They talked about, hey, some of our black men have not protected us and things of that nature. They have actually been a part of the problem. And so to me, that's what black exploitation is. It gives a fuller picture of what it means to be black. We're human beings, but not outside some sort of fucking, I know everybody, and Dr. Spinks and I crack up, and, we're like, we made this, we're all descendants of kings and queens. So nah, some of y'all descendants of the camel jockeys. Some of y'all descendants There's only one king and one queen, and y'all all can't be descendant of them motherfuckers. Stop playing. You know what I mean? Stop playing. Make us all human, make us human, put us back in the human diaspora, but yet still love your skin, still love your skin color, still love the people within your culture. I love being black, man. It's crazy. Righteous. And so when, as one pointed out, kicking ass, that's the shadow side. So much of us had been yes sir and no sir, and had to do that to protect our family.
Right.
We don't even understand that the first Uncle Tom was about protecting his family and tricking white folks. He wasn't about just stepping fetching and all that sort of stuff. And even the stepping fetchers, they were the first actors that made money doing that.
Right.
So to look at them with a negative eye is to not place them in the time, in the historic period that they were in. I love having students who are like, I wouldn't have been a slave. Yes, you would, nigga. Come on, man. You'd have been dead or you would have been a slave.
Right.
I don't know why you
Right.
playing.
Uh-huh.
Why are you playing?
Right.
Stop playing. Don't do that to your ancestors to act like they were just, oh my God. No, that was a whole cultural understanding which you couldn't have understood. So,
right.
So when I look at Blaxploitation films, man, some of those folks was dressed like my dad. I remember I could. And when we get visual, I'm gonna put on a jacket that my brother gave me, and trench coat that I have, man. It looks like those dudes because it was real. You know what I mean? Because it was that moment. My dad used to wear bell-bottom pad plants, and my mom would have tight ass fucking bell-bottom jeans on. Where the fuck you going? But I'm, you know what I mean? But that was who we were.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we were at that time. So to deny part of that, man.
Dr. T's explanation, but not only that, you could hear the passion behind that is where the pride came in. That's the part where I wanted people to understand where the name Blaxploitation Pride came from. This isn't no literal sense, because I get it. If you see Blaxploitation Pride, it's easy to take it literal. Blacks being exploited is prideful? Nah, that's not what we meant by it. Not at all. It was just taking pride in who we are as people, keeping the humane society behind us. Keeping us human and not just something else or what they wanted to define it. Basically, taking back the definition and redefining it how I see fit, not what it meant at the particular time that it was first coined by Eunice Griffin.
Right. Now I have a question. Blaxploitation Pride was the blog, and then we started to make a transition to social media by way of Facebook. And now there's something called DAARAC. Is that something separate? Is it the same? This is causing confusion for some people. What's DAARAC and what's Blaxploitation Pride? Is it the same entity? Has it been renamed? Is it a rollover? Can you break that down, brother?
Well, the truth of it is that there is a negative connotation behind the term Blaxploitation. So no matter how I define it, or no matter what I mean by it, the general eye will not see it the way that I see it, or the way that we see it. Taking that into consideration, we had to come up with an alternative name to keep us going, to make us more official. And so we decided to start a non-profit organization based on the work that we done under Blaxploitation Pride. and you just can't erase over 10 years worth of cultivating black arts and culture. And so we go ahead.
Can we specify what kind of work was done? What have you done collecting all these films that were out of print, that had never been seen in the past 50 years? We didn't even know whether or not these films existed, if they were reels or tapes. What has happened in the past 10 years that would warrant a nonprofit? What's been done?
So when we first started this, we was also in the sweet point of the internet. And what I mean by the sweet point, that there was no we were still in the early onsets of the digital era. YouTube had just been created, so content on YouTube is being put up on there, and we're starting to have wikis. The internet is flowing with information, and since I decided to start focusing on blaxploitation films, I was able to have a place where people can go to research this. But what we all started to find out is how much we didn't know, or we didn't know existed. And so people was coming from all over the world, hitting us off with either soundtracks that was maybe only released in particular countries, films that we didn't know existed or might have just been on VHS. And because this was in the mid to late 2000s, there weren't a lot of people that was converting VHS tapes over to digital platforms. So because people all over the world was just coming to us, and they would all send messages talking about, man, I didn't know this existed. I'm so thankful for the blog. I mean, we just had a lot of great testimony from people from around the world. What ended up happening was the next phase of the digital age had hit. These blaxploitation films that was on VHS or DVD are now being converted over to Blu-ray. And I'm sorry, I can't help but to feel like that we was a large part of that reason. And so part of the reason of starting the organization was to take some sort of credit for helping the blaxploitation era continue to exist long after the era itself had ended. And also saying that, hey, we also have an influence on how people operate their business. Do they see an audience that's worth releasing these films? Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it. They wouldn't have done it if they didn't know that there was an audience available.
We even had an influence on. Now, I'm going to speak about this. You don't have to co-sign, Doctor. But I think that Blaxploitation Pride has something to do with the beginning or the opening of Wesley's theory in To Pimp A Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. Because what nobody talking about, Every Nigga Is a Star by the Boris Gardner Quartet.
Right.
You remember that? And it was on the side of Blaxploitation Pride. Because on the side where we have the database that goes by decade and by subgenre, up top there was Every Nigga Is a Star by Boris Gardner. Years later, when To Pimp A Butterfly came out, and on the track Wesley's Theory, that's the song. And I thought, let me go to the liner notes of this shit and see if we see Blaxploitation. Special thanks. I didn't see shit, Dr. T. I didn't see shit, Dr. T. And I think years later,
that's why we wanted this way. It's the characters of doing that genre. Make sure that they have their ducks in a row so they can monetize what they do, that they take responsibility for and have pride in what they have created and protect it. Right. That's what other groups do. Those characters in exploitation. That was part of what they did. Even if they did something that was illegal, they want to understand that they could monetize it and it could finance their dreams. So with that being said, I know I'm the last one to roll up in, man, but I'm certainly glad that you guys have started that and expanded it to films past and after particular, and music after that, you know, has become a study of just Black culture and, you know, and our human presence. And that part of it is so massive, because if you look around the world, you know, how funk music and Blaxploitation cultivated other countries in Africa and the West Indies as they, you know, fought for their own independence, and how they looked and how they did music and how and things of that nature. Man, I love some Black funk music from Africa and stuff like that. Some of the most inspirational. And if you don't think that James Brown was influential in how they saw music and did music and how they made movies, you know, you're wrong. You're wrong. So
for the community out there that's listening to us for the first time, I just met Build and Destroy, aka Kinky Shaman, aka Dr. Tafari, last week. And when I tell you I'm in for a ride personally, to be able to share the microphone, to hear what this brother has to say, I can't wait. I got all kind of questions and things to talk about in terms of who the hell are you? Clinical sexologist, you know, the practitioner of all the stuff that, man, when JD said, Dr. Tafari, we did a lecture and we talked a little bit about it. And I said, man, who is this brother, man? You know, I think it was about a year and a half ago that you told me about this lecture that you all had. And it took you 18 months to introduce me to the brother. I've been chomping at the bit, waiting to meet him, to ask all kind of questions, to see what type of expression that he's going, because I got questions. I got a whole bunch of questions, and I know the community got questions. So,
hey, the only thing that I can promise you that I'll be the first temptation to be kicked out the group. You know what I mean? That's the only thing that I can promise. I'm gonna be artistic. I'm gonna sing my ass off. But I might be the dude who's helping us move forward and also get kicked out of fucking good concerts. Like, we can't depend on them. That nigga came late again.
Well, I gotta give a disclaimer to the community and let them know that if I refer to Build and Destroy or Kinky Shaman or Sexy Vampire or Dr. T, I'm talking about one man. It's not a whole group of motherfuckers. It's just one cat, you know. So he's gonna be called a whole bunch of different names over the course. Yeah.
That is hilarious. But what's so funny, man? The presentations, and this is how Dr. T really became an integral part to our organization.
Righteous.
Was because his educational background, but his human science that he brings to this organization, especially when it comes to Black folks. Now, the presentation, unfortunately, is a thing of legend. Okay, and so you pretty much had to really be there to understand how fantastic it was, because this is just our first podcast. But as we continue to move forward, we're going to start really digging deep into the psychology of Black arts and culture,
right,
and how it's presented. And that's the reason why I had wanted Dr. T to be part of this, because he exemplifies Black arts and culture, but also the psychology behind how we think and how we maneuver and navigate this world 100%. As Black people.
Right. 100%.
And so we have a very in-depth group, and we have a lot of experience here that we're going to bring to this. But Dr. T, what I want you to do is I kind of want you to give a little bit of explanation on not only how we talked about the presentation, because I handled most of the just the fact checks behind. Okay, this is Oscar Macho film within our gaze 1920, and these are stereotypes that black people were during this time, and then how we evolved and from the 20s, 30s, and 40s all the way up into the 90s. Really kind of give the audience a perspective or an explanation when you start to talk about how imagery society changes over times and how impactful that is to our psyche.
Well, when we did our presentation, what I started to think about was what music was going on, what literature, what laws were we battling at the time, and what those people of that time period were facing, what sort of mythic understanding they had of that moment, as opposed to being a judge of that moment, um, when I didn't live in it or I was too young to understand it, and to then say, "Oh, these people should have done this, that, and the third," when they may not have had the context or the capability to even do that then. So when we did the presentation, I wanted to be able to let folk understand that this particular time period, the Supreme Court said that blacks were animals, and that was legal, and that there was no right that white man, specifically said a white man, and called us Africans at the time. When we talk about um, historically, some of the films that you're talking about prior to the um, Blaxploitation era, when we talk about films of slavery and freedom and things of that nature and arts during that time, and to bring it into a larger context, like you said, first a larger context of blackness, and then to try to see what humanity was doing at that time, around the world. Um, and so when we would do that, I thought that it places not only blacks back into the human diaspora, but what you and One were doing already. Like, y'all can't be fucked with, man. Y'all were doing some stuff that was like, damn, scholarly work on at the highest level, even though it was obscure. And when we when I when I would look at other people's doing those sorts of things and see how it was celebrated, and then say, oh man, we're not celebrating the same way, because I think One kind of alluded to it, we didn't create the market for it. We didn't shout out from the hilltops like, yo, we put this language together. What am I doing that you're not doing? And you should pay, and you should respect, and you should understand that this particular art form has its relevance, whether you like it or not. Carl Jung talked about the shadow, how we hide the shadow, and as far as I'm concerned, psychologically, that Blaxploitation part is the shadow of who we had been. Because we built up a certain type of anger, and it just had to come out, and that there was a whole world of that going on. There was a whole world of black people said, if we can't make it through legal means, and if we were tired of turning the other cheek once we got slapped in one, that there was a whole group of people in a whole world that was like, well, we'll create our own world of badass motherfuckers, and that's how we're going to live and exist and feed our families and love and understand the world. And I try to even elaborate, as you in our discussions, that even though One and I overlap in time period, how they did it in Cali is different than how they did it in New York, just simply because of environment and numbers of people. You know what I mean? I was thinking before we got on, for instance, and drive-bys are big in Cali. I was like, man, too much traffic in New York. Drive-by, somebody being at a red light and shit, be like, okay, all right. Environment make a difference. You know what I mean? The world makes a difference. There's no drive-bys in New York. Run-by. I shoot you, run. Subway or something like that, man. but environment, and then when we get to North Carolina, this other field, or the dirty South, get this other field going on. I say, you know, the road be too long. You know what I mean? You do a drive by, you be on that motherfucker. Say, I still see you, nigga. You ain't make a turn yet, motherfucker. Where you going? I see you. I know you hold my mama's shirt. You motherfucker don't.
You ain't never lied, boy.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
And that's the point of having him on this organization, was because he delivers the perspective that it is necessary to understand how, you know, black culture and black arts has evolved over time. Nothing stays the same. I know we like to say, people say the more things change, the more they stay the same, or there's certain aspects that existed back in 1920 versus, you know, 2020. No, it's not possible, man. You know, there are some aspects that are similar, but nothing's the same. The thought ain't the same. The environment ain't the same. The technology ain't the same. Shit, the weather ain't the same.
Right.
You know, and all that affects people, humans, their thought process, and even how we create art. You got technology now. Everybody can make a beat now, but 30, 40 years ago, only certain cats that had MPCs and turntables was making beats. You know, and DJing.
And prior to that, remember we went on the whole rabbit hole of trying to figure out why we could, you know, like, why was Sammy Davis so badass? And then we found out he played everything. Like,
he danced, he could dance, he was a comedian.
Man, yeah.
You know, and he played the vibes and the drums and all this other stuff, man. And that was the period of the time where that's what it meant to be black excellence. And then that, like you said, it's something else. And here we are in 3 different parts of the world making one podcast and talk about the excellence of that, and how to make sure that we have a certain sort of excellence. I'm teasing these gentlemen as calling them prepared motherfuckers earlier and shit, man. But that's what I want. You know, I want a level of excellence to rival anybody out there of what we could do with the technology and the time period in which we're in, and not to crap on our own period of time, the Blaxploitation, simply because it was what it was at that time period in those places of the world, with those political and technological constraints. Yeah, man. So I definitely think about it in that way. And certainly, like you said, when I think people say things stay the same, there's a sense of black oppression that is still prevalent, because of when other groups met each other, they thought their reality was superior to the reality of the people they met, as opposed to understanding theirs. And so they oppressed them. They used their power to enslave them. You know. However, on the other hand, motherfuckers say it's still like it was when it's slavery. Nah, I can't say that. You know what I mean? I'm in front of classrooms, tatted and pierced, and I'm like, nah, that's not the same. You know, my mom lived as a sharecropper on a street called Black's Road, where they called Color Town. I wish a motherfucker would put me in Color Town right now. Dr. T, we'd like to show you a good street called Black's Road in Color Town. What the fuck are you talking about? You better think again. Kids ain't growing up in Color Town. Shit, babies can't grow up in Color Town. So, with that being said, I'm glad that there's something I have to say that would bring importance to what you two gentlemen have established over time. Diligence and work, black excellence, human excellence, and perseverance. Because I remember, and it's not even all the films, where you gave me this big download of all these films and music and all that sort of stuff, and that's why I was like, oh man, this is just another thing that I could tinker with, you know, with fashion, with art, like Wone was talking about. I was part of the hip hop era in New York, man, and that was my thing. And the graffiti. You know, KRS-One describes hip hop as a culture. So there's a graffiti, there's dance, there's fashion, there's social thinking at that particular time that make it a culture that bring those people together. Throughout the country, and see how it evolved. You know, Cali and New York, I think, on similar things. You know, because NWA and KRS-One and Public Enemy at that time were angry. You know, and the music shows on the East Coast and the West Coast, even though establishments made those two groups initially dislike each other because of, and then New York not understanding that, you know, hip hop changed and grew. And then what the Dirty South was, they brought party back. You know, at first New York and Cali were partying until Public Enemy and KRS-One and NWA was like, man, what the fuck y'all partying about?
Right.
But out here angry, and then Dirty South brought, you know, a Southern understanding and what that was, and you know, so yeah, man, you have me ramble on. I'm like that old man who starts talking about, you know, when I was young. You know, I don't want to go there.
Well, see, that's what we're doing. So, we're building the excellence and destroying the irrelevance. You know, that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
So, Wone, I actually got a quick question for you, man. Kind of give people an idea, man, what to expect from us, man.
Just a detailed analysis of the culture that we're in and what we had borne witness to, those of us that experienced it in other generations. And then we also finally detail the era in which we weren't in at all. Like in this case, we would talk about the race film era of the 20s and 30s, Oscar Michaud, and the Lincoln Motion Picture Company. We're going to break down the psychology of art in film, music, television. We have a whole bunch of OGs that's in the era that's going to come up that we're going to interview. It's going to be call-in, different segments. I'm just so excited. Then we got Build and Destroy every week. Can you think about what it would be? What type of advantage that you have to build and destroy weekly? Some people go to church, you know, but we got church with us right here. So it's so many things that we have in store. But I'm excited just for what we had today. This is incredible.
Yeah. We have a lot to unpack. This is, you know, just the introduction. I mean, even though we'll talk a lot about history, man, we're going to talk a lot about what's going on in modern times as well,
and what's happening tomorrow as well.
Right.
What's going on with the Black History Tournament? Is it over?
No, the Black History Tournament is not
just left
over
the Sweet 16, right?
We're in the Elite Eight.
The Elite Eight.
With that, so we'll finish that up, man, and might set up a new one. We will, like Wone has mentioned, we plan to get some folks in here to do some interviews. Yeah, and I definitely look forward for people to come in and to call in once we can get you know, stuff established, to call in and ask questions, give opinions, perspectives on things, and whatnot. And you know, if there's things about what we say that people want to challenge us, and trust me, we're not going to back down from any type of challenge. Actually, you should be afraid to challenge us.
Right. Because you're going to get destroyed. But you'll be rebuilt. We're going to build you back up. But you getting destroyed. Ain't that right, Dr. T?
Oh, hey. Isaiah 45:7 says, I form the light and I create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. I got to explain that to me right here, so we can start right there.
Oh man, this is gonna be great.
Yeah, on that motherfucking note right there. Dr. J.D. Spinks, Dr. Tafari, let me take this time to say thank you to the both of you brothers for making the plunge into this podcasting thing. And there's so many contributions that we have to make in a variety of avenues. But this one here, this is going to be the one where we're going to have the most fun. And this pilot is a definite indicator of things to come. I'm thoroughly keyed up and excited.
Oh man,
Yes.
one of the brightest spots, man. When I we were first talking about it and cracking up, and you were like, man, are we recording this? And we got on JD as the youngest man, and that's what stuff that I see your organization and your consistency to excellence, and Spinks, you the one who started the whole notion. Yeah. So I was so excited about being able to, being Kyrie and burn stage and try to get in where I fit in, man. I'm excited, and thank you for saying that. I'm excited. I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, man.
That's right. Kyrie, Harden, and Easy Money Sniper.
Oh yeah, that's how we're going about it, man. We'll see where this takes us, man. But yeah, I think that's it for our first cast. So we'll wrap it up. When we return, we'll return with something. You'll know when the time comes.
We go
right now. Give the guys some time to kind of figure this out, and so we can move on to the next step, and so we can not only bring you just a podcast, but we want to bring you stuff with quality content. We don't want to waste your time in none of this. So when you leave out of here, you have something to discuss, something you can present to people, and be like, yeah, you know what, these guys just aren't entertaining, but they also have something to offer. Maybe that could help me or other people around me. So I appreciate everybody's time and look forward to seeing y'all in the future.
Boom. That's it. DAARAC, it's how you view you, not how they see. A show, Duvernay Fanaka, Spike Lee, an image is represented that looks like me. Nothing ridiculous, slick like niggas, bad like Callaway, the Nino May, between like butterfly, sting like green leaf. I'm the spook next to the door and the TV. We be one nation, living self-science, build and destroy till we formed an alliance. Hollywood shuffle, meet monkey hustle, Warhawk and black belt here for the trouble. Rebel, no pause, all for the jaw jack. Caesar, Foxy, plus the rest of this raw pack. Take your toe tack, give me Paul ropes, chin up, chest out, no to the tropes, and pride to the end, black excellence within. The dynamite of Willie singing sweet back again. When it's all said and done, son, remember, you're rolling with the rock. Run, ready on the mark, cause we targeting the art. Shooting from the hip, cause we do rocking from the heart.
This is big business right here.